Today, we're going to explore one of the most important phases of all the phases in a narcissistic relationship, which is the first one, and it is known as the grooming phase. I consider this one of the most important phases of this kind of relationship because it is often the persecutor to deeper manipulation, and understanding it very well is extremely important for people who might be in these situations right now or potentially fall for this kind of manipulation. I am going to be sharing a personal story about how I got into a relationship of the sort and how it all went down from there. Before we get into it, let me introduce myself. I'm Jen Hachia, and on this channel, we explore the complexities of psychology and manipulation and then discuss it in the comments below. So if that feels interesting to you, you are welcome to subscribe. And if you're already a regular watcher, hello there. Now let's dive in. So I'm going to start to paint the picture for you to really understand what happened. It was 2012. I had turned 19, and like many people that age, I was still grappling with my own vision of the future and what I wanted for myself. I wanted to become independent and meet new friends and discover who I was. I had just started my bachelor's degree. I was going almost into my second year. I was just tired of making so much of my personality the people that I ended up liking and developing feelings for. I just had this tendency to mold myself to the people that I liked because I had this deep need to be loved. And at that age and at that moment of my life, after being disillusioned so many times, I said enough is enough. And I was ready to start a new chapter where I was going to focus on myself and myself only for the first time in my life, and focus in my career, in my studies, and do that. Basically reinvent myself. But as fate would have it, this newfound determination was about to be challenged by someone who didn't have the best intentions at heart, and I was not emotionally prepared to face it or emotionally equipped to realize what was happening. I was working at my mother's and stepfather's coffee shop in the village while also studying, and this situation left me financially strained and feeling quite trapped, to be honest, because I did want to discover myself and reinvent myself, but I didn't have that much time to socialize except while I was actually sitting in class. Because in the free time, while everybody else was just hanging out with each other, I had to grab my car and drive as fast as I could to the village to go work. So that was also quite restrictive. And I believe it really didn't help the situation at all. I ended up coming across this person that had this really unsettling charm. I did not have a good feeling about him from the beginning. And this is really important to mention because I did not feel attracted to him in the sense of curious about him. I just had this deeper knowing that he was bad news. I wanted to avoid that because in my teenage years, when somebody was bad news, I was compelled to pursue them. And so I had already trained myself to think, okay, if somebody feels like they're bad news, I am not going to pursue these people. I'm actually going to completely shut any attempt of them getting close to me down. I'm not going to do that. However, this person was very good at grooming. And the way they approached me and the way they approached the entire relationship was quite unique. So I knew this person because we had mutual friends, and at one point I was invited to one of this friend's birthday dinner, which I wasn't really that compelled to go, but I went anyway, just for a while, and that whole relationship dynamic was pretty messy in itself. Me and this friend, he was a guy. And yeah, it was already pretty messy. And then it just became messier because I was basically going to the bathroom, walking in the hall of the restaurant. It was a birthday party in a restaurant. And this guy that was his friend approached me and was very intrusive and very much, he basically harassed me. He started talking nonsense. He was just saying a bunch of words completely out of context. He had a bottle of white wine in his hand, and he started talking to me and getting really close. And I tell him, go away. And he just continues to like get closer. He wasn't trying to do anything physical, I don't think, but he was trying to just talk and get to me with his words. And I was feeling a bit uncomfortable about the situation, obviously. He was like, but wait, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something. This guy saw the interaction and he told him to get away from me. And that was basically the first time we talked to each other, in which my talking just consisted of telling him to get away from me. I'm laughing now, but at the time I was obviously uncomfortable with that. He didn't apologize or anything right after the situation. He just continued his night there at the birthday dinner, and everybody just kind of ignored it. And then I expressed to my friend eventually how I thought it was very disrespectful, that he had this very intrusive attitude, and that I had, one of his friends saw it and had to stop it. And so a few days later, this guy comes to the coffee shop while I'm working and apologizes. I frankly did not want an apology. I just didn't want to see him again. I didn't want to talk to this person again because I was distressed about the situation. His whole approach seemed off, frankly, because he didn't even come in and just apologize. He came in, asked for a beer, and was there with a coworker or whatever. And then he just kept trying to make eye contact. And then I was completely ignoring it. And then he apologized. He apologized for his conduct. I didn't want the apology, but I said the typical, it's okay. And I thought that was going to be that, but it wasn't. Then a few months later, he added me on Facebook, which at the time was a thing. He added me on Facebook. And I always used to message people that I didn't know personally or that I wasn't close to. Do I know you? I just used to do that. And he responded something that was so eye-rolling. And even at the time, I just thought it was so lame, which was, you don't know me, but you could get to know me. And I said, thanks, but no thanks, not interested. And that was the beginning of his infiltration in my life. And again, I was very naive. I was not very socialized. And so it's odd looking back, but at the time, he was very insistent. And when you don't love yourself very much and you get someone's attention and they are suddenly showing kindness and being nice and asking you about what are you studying, and oh, you have tests, when are they? And then they remember the date that your test was, so at the end of the day they text you asking how it was. These kinds of things, you start feeling seen. And that's the thing, you start feeling seen, you slowly start softening up to that person. And it was this mix of charm and persistence that broke through this resistance that I had. I didn't instantly open up. Obviously, I was quite resistant still, especially because I felt this kind of love bombing, which I didn't know the term. At the time, nobody was talking about narcissistic abuse. Nobody was talking about manipulation. Nobody was talking about this openly. So when I talked to other people that I knew about this and opened up about it and how uncomfortable I was, people would tell me, oh, you're just being silly. You're not used to people showing interest and caring about you. You're just being resistant. And then at the time, I didn't really have that many close friends. And so I talked to my mother, and she told me that I should probably give him a chance, because if I kept being so closed off to everyone, I would end up alone. And so she completely pushed me towards that situation as well, although I had very clear motives for why I didn't want to let this person in. I had these specific stories, right, of just strange approach, harassment right from the beginning. That should have been enough. And if I had someone tell me this story, if I had my younger self tell me this story now, I would tell myself, this is complete red flag. Stay away. Do not talk to this person. Block, delete. Do not engage in conversation with this person. But awareness at the time was very low, and hopefully these things are changing more and more. But yeah, I eventually started lowering my guard, and the more I lowered my guard, the more what he was doing was actually just the typical narcissist's persistent efforts and emotional manipulation. Because as he was getting close to me, he didn't say that he had romantic interest towards me. He was talking to me like a friend. And so I thought, okay, sure. I mean, I can let this person in. We can just be friends. That's totally fine. I don't mind having a friend. I could use a friend. And I don't mind being somebody else's friend, because I like helping. I like listening to other people talk and vent and help them out. So no problem. But then he started going full force romantic interest expression. And I pretty much friend-zoned him and told him I was not interested in a romantic relationship with him or with anyone. And I was focusing on myself. I told him this, and he started doing the classic narcissistic guilt tripping, which, again, I did not know at the time. I was completely unaware of the existence of guilt tripping as a manipulative tactic, and definitely not in a very subtle way, because then he used the sort of victim card, as in he started pretty much crying on the phone, telling me that he always tries to open up to people and love people, but people never understand and they always reject him. And it's really sad and depressing, and basically threatening to possibly hurt himself. And I felt terrible. I felt really terrible and alarmed. And I thought to myself, maybe he is a good person. He does mean well. Maybe he just wants to love someone. Fine. And that was basically when I let him in a lot more. And I don't want to say it was pity, because it wasn't pity. It was empathy. It was just thinking, oh, wait, maybe I can relate to him. I mean, I also want to love someone, and people don't let me because they either say I'm not pretty enough or not popular enough or just not social enough or something, So I felt seen, but what he was really doing was just projecting my own needs and my own personality back at me. Because ultimately, his real personality, his real self, was that person that was drunk with the bottle of wine on his hand, trying to be intrusive and harass me. Right in our first interaction ever. And the thing with the grooming, and this is how grooming happens, it's very slowly, because this didn't happen in a stretch of a week. This happened over the course of 3-4 months. So it was quite slow. It was quite gradual. I had enough time to think, digest, question, ask friends for advice, be not very well advised, because again, awareness was not very common at the time. And we're talking about almost 15 years ago. So yeah. And the thing is, the grooming phase exploits a person's psychological needs. Somehow narcissists can detect somebody's psychological needs and they will exploit it. Or they will They don't magically know somebody's psychological needs, but by interacting with a person and seeing how they respond to things, they kind of poke around and try to understand where the person is giving in or not. They can tell, and they are aware of this because this is the only thing that they're really attentive in relationships and not attentive to actually connect with the person. So all that energy, all that brain activity energy doesn't go into connecting with someone, doesn't go into listening to someone. It goes into figuring out somebody's fragilities. And when you are a person that is needy, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, of course, I'm not being condescending to myself from the past. I'm being quite empathetic because a lot of people are needy, and in the sense of people are lonely, people want to be loved, and we are very susceptible to manipulation. We have possibly never been as susceptible to being emotionally manipulated and groomed as today, because with a loneliness epidemic, it's easy to fall prey of these things and to be a prey of these things. And when people have a background such as mine, where it was shaped by a controlling and emotionally manipulative mother and father and stepfather, it makes you even more susceptible to this kind of manipulation because you don't really know what healthy love looks like and what caring looks like, caring without being controlled looks like. So in my case, then the fact that I talked to my mother and she told me, you're going to end up alone if you don't open up to someone. Or if you don't open up to him, actually, it clouded my judgment completely because I did want to meet her expectations and I did want to please her and I didn't want to be alone. The thought of being forever alone deeply scared me. So that's what made me lower my guard. It wasn't because I actually deeply connected with him suddenly, or there was some massive breakthrough where I found out that actually he is just a fantastic person, because he wasn't. And in everything that he said and he told me and he opened up about over the course of those months and even those years, nothing was an example of a person that was a person with morals or a person with a great personality. Quite the contrary, actually. It was a person that was abusive, a person that would harass and exploit other people and then somehow twist the story to make themselves the victims. And the thing with these people is that when they get to your heart, you get to a point where you are accidentally and almost subconsciously excusing the person for their wrongdoings and helping them find even more justifications to justify their wrongdoings. So you are relieving their guilt and giving them love and attention at the same time, which is what they want. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that and they are not willing to give you that. But in the grooming phase, they are, and that's what we're focusing on here. And the important thing that I want to stress here is that when you grow up in an environment that is manipulative and controlling, it makes you more susceptible to these things. And research actually supports that individuals with histories of emotional abuse or neglect often develop these maladaptive coping mechanisms, such as people-pleasing and heightened sensitivity to other people. And that's the thing, when you have a heightened sensitivity to other people, you end up being overly empathetic. And if you are overly empathetic, you might ignore the red flags because you are going to find excuses to justify somebody's very poor behavior. Oh, because they had a rough childhood. Sure, but that doesn't excuse them being a really bad person. And this person that you're going to justify is going to exploit you to control you, unfortunately. Then another aspect to consider is that there is an impact of physical touch and affection. Humans have this innate need for emotional connection and physical contact. And this is scientifically proven and written about very extensively. And in my case, it was intensified by a lack of affection during my upbringing ever since I was a child, which ended up making me even more susceptible for narcissistic love bombing and these overly exaggerated displays of affection. And this narcissist's ability to shower me in compliments and this seemingly genuine affection during the grooming phase was ultimately strategically designed to create this sense of obligation from my end and emotional investment as well. Because if you are a people pleaser and you have a heightened sensitivity to attune to other people and heightened sensitivity to rejection, as you have this sense of obligation to reciprocate, even if deep down the feeling is not reciprocal. And narcissists know that people that have a background of abuse will be more susceptible. And narcissists know that their love bombing will eventually give you this sense of guilt that you have to reciprocate or that you have to give back in some way. And this is why love bombing is so effective, because essentially it effectively manipulates someone into deeper attachment. And it makes it harder for a person to recognize abuse until it's too late and they're already way too invested emotionally and way in too deep. And as the relationship progressed and I started opening up more, I started questioning my own feelings. But I tried to brush it off and think, but he just wants to love someone. And also what people around me told me, which was, you're just being difficult because you are emotionally closed. When really, I was just not feeling the connection, which is okay. You don't have to reciprocate somebody's feelings. Just because you want to love and you want to be loved does not mean that you have to force yourself to reciprocate somebody's feelings, because the alternative is that you're going to be alone. Yeah, sure, you might end up being alone for a particular amount of time, but eventually you will be setting yourself up to actually be available for a genuine connection. And you will be sparing yourself from the emotional trauma of being in a relationship like this, because contrary to popular belief, you cannot fix someone. You cannot. If somebody doesn't want to be helped, if somebody doesn't want to heal, they're not going to, and you can't do anything about it. You can't fix them, or you can't fix her. So the moment from when I started thinking, okay, I should open up because I'm going to be alone forever. That's the alternative. And from that moment to actually us started dating and having a first kiss was about 2 months. So for me at the time, it was short. I know people in modern days, they tend to move through relationship pretty quickly, but I was very emotionally reserved and skeptical. So for me, 2 months from the moment I'm opening up emotionally to someone to having a first kiss with that person in which there is a real emotional connection, and I was 19, it was very quick. It was pretty quick. And it's important to mention that he did try to kiss me previously to that first kiss, but I rejected him because I, again, didn't feel that connection. And deep down, you do feel like physically you are closed and there is just something in you that is not letting you open up. And that isn't your intuition telling you bad news, because even if you don't know consciously what healthy love looks like, and you are used to controlling manipulative love, your body will react or not react to certain approaches. And that's exactly what happened. I just kept questioning my feelings and living this kind of duality of what other people were telling me, and I don't want to disappoint other people because other people are clearly invested in me having a relationship, because I might be alone forever if not, and me just feeling not compelled to be with this person. So despite not feeling a genuine connection with him, I started blaming myself and feeling guilty for not feeling a connection. So I started forcing that connection. And the interesting thing is that this internal conflict of not feeling the connection, but feeling like you have to feel the connection, is quite common for victims of narcissists and of narcissistic abuse. The narcissist's idealization of you and love bombing that happens in the grooming phase, they create this false sense of intimacy between you and that person, which makes the target of the abuse question their own reality and their own emotional responses. And if a person already has a tendency to be insecure and to not be able to self-validate, they are going to find any other reason in the world to justify or to blame themselves for not feeling that relationship and not reciprocating, rather than just facing that they're not feeling it. And according to Pincus and Lukowitsky, narcissists use these tactics to destabilize their target's self-perception and perception of the reality around them, and make them more reliant on them, on the narcissists, for validation. So they sense that you cannot validate your own reality. They sense that you are insecure. They sense that you are in deep need for love and deep need for attention. They sense this, and so they use all of that to manipulate you and dig you even deeper into this relationship, that they're basically setting the ground for a relationship in which you will be completely rooted in their soil, basically. And so no matter how uncomfortable a person feels with that person, no matter how much they have difficulty even feeling a sense of attraction and excitement in what is supposed to be one of the most, or the most, exhilarating parts of any relationship. It's that beginning. It's that, the endorphins and the hormones and everything is supposed to just be woo. But with a narcissist, this often doesn't come naturally. It will take a lot of self-gaslighting and a lot of manipulation from the other person for it to actually happen and develop. And this is just the first phase of a relationship with a narcissist. Some people end up being groomed and it doesn't move towards the next phase. However, more often than not, grooming phases are very successful, especially when people already have precedents of being victims of abuse. And so this leads us to the next phase, which is the idealization phase. This is the phase that further consolidates the narcissist's control over a person. This phase is known for fulfilling the target's emotional needs and desires, which confuses the person even more and makes them really believe that they are in this perfect, fantastic relationship and that they feel so fulfilled. And this phase is designed to make the person that has already, in a way, been conquered, make the target even more invested and less keen to question the relationship further down the road when the darker phases of the relationship start settling in. And that is the phase we're going to discuss on the next video. So understanding the grooming phase and all the tactics that are within that phase, namely love bombing, emotional blackmailing, and guilt tripping, is really important to avoid falling for this type of manipulation and ending up potentially spoiling a huge part of your life with someone who will essentially drain you and potentially depersonalize you to a point of no return. So in the next video, we are going to go into the idealization phase, and we will explore how the narcissist's charm and seemingly perfect behavior can eventually lead to deeper manipulation and abuse. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something new. And if you are interested in this type of content, again, subscribe, watch the playlist of Life Lessons Through Psychology and other videos on the channel, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.